The beginning stages were just me wanting to help my friends get information about Korea and the Korean language. It was 2009 when we first published first podcast episode, and people asked for more. I pulled various interests I had personally into one place: website building, media making, educational material design and creation, language learning, language teaching, all in one place. Voila, you have something called Talk to Me in Korean.
Hey, what's up? Hey, what's up? Welcome to Behind the Frames. Today, I had the opportunity to sit down with Hyunwoo Sun, the founder of Talk to Me in Korean, a foreign language learning brand started in 2009, who now sold over 1 million copies of books and textbooks to help people learn how to speak Korean better.
To paying for courses online, people were definitely not used to ordering books shipped literally from South Korea. Therefore, if I had started with this business plan of, hey, I'm going to sell courses, I'm going to sell books, maybe it might have not worked. Well, when we opened a coffee shop, because we have a lot of online presence on the internet, maybe if we open an offline venue, people would come and just hang out with us. People did come and people did actually hang out with us, but then the problem was.
And today in my conversation with Hyunwoo, we talked about the story of how Talk to Me in Korean scale since 2009, especially in an age where digital learning, online courses, digital products weren't accessible. We talked about how he built the Talk to Me in Korean team to over 26 members today, and how decisions are made when it comes to initiatives and allocating resources. And last but not least, we talked about Hyunwoo's reflection over his 15 years creating content on the internet and how he reacted to the trend, to the phenomenon where a lot of large OG YouTubers are quitting YouTube. And welcome to my conversation with Hyunwoo. So, if you look back, it's been about 15 years since you posted your very first Spotify episode. What was that story like when you probably one of the first people who posted anything on Spotify?
But yeah, it was 2009 when we first published first podcast episode, and since then we also created our YouTube channel and started doing other things in terms of content creation. So it's been great. It's been a lot of fun, and I knew I was going to do this for a long time, but I don't know where time went. It's been already 15 years.
Wow. It's been over 15 years since you started the platform, going from audio to video to blogs to mobile apps. And now your book copies that you sell, the physical book copies, have reached over 1 million households. What was the proudest moment you've ever had?
That's a difficult question because every single moment, every single day of working with the Talk to Me Korean team and also on the platform, the brand, is really a lot of joy for me. And I can't pinpoint at one proudest moment, but generally speaking, I am happy when a book is launched, when a book is distributed around the world. I am happy when a YouTube episode is up on our YouTube channel. I'm happy when a course is launched on our website where we have the course subscription. But I'm generally happier when I bump into people like here in Korea on the streets who talk to me in Korean, which is the name of our brand. And I literally 2 weeks ago went to this go-kart place with my son, my big son, and we were driving around in the go-kart, and we left the place and we walked into the parking lot, and there were 5 guys from Uzbekistan who were talking to each other, and then they had also just finished their go-karting, and then they said hi to me. Hey, you're Hyunwoo from Talk to Me in Korean. And then we chatted a little bit in English and Korean, and those moments whenever I meet people who are living and real instead of this microphone that I'm talking into, those are the happy moments that I really, really enjoy. And my son was seeing the proof of his father's work. People recognize his father and they're thanking me for the books and the courses. So yeah, meeting people in person who tell me that they have learned Korean through our materials is like my favorite type of experiences or like proud moments, if you can say that.
To me, learning a new language, it's like a superpower because if I were able to listen and hear what they're saying in Korean, it's almost felt like I've unlocked like a different area of the world that I was able to understand their culture from my own ears, from my own brain. When you were younger, you were saying you didn't have the chance to go to America or do exchange in English speaking countries. So what ended up happening is you were in Seoul, you were in Korean, you were studying English textbooks, you were watching English content, you watch it with the subtitles on, and watch it again without the subtitles. And how did those moments lead to you starting Talk to Me in Korean?
So everything happened really naturally. And I know that not everybody who is an entrepreneur or who is a business owner can say that things will go naturally. Like maybe some people they'll do better when they have a business plan in the beginning and then actually stick to the plan. But I am the type of person who kind of wants to work with the flow of things and just work on the next thing and see how it goes and then come up with better ideas and tackle the issue again in better like angles and stuff. So I did exactly that. And in high school, I was not in Seoul, but I was in a different city, which was smaller. So that made my experience even more, I guess, narrower and also more isolated because I wanted. So that gave me a natural tendency and also desire to explore more. Like, hey, I want to eventually. So I was a high school student thinking that I will eventually go to Seoul to attend college, which I did. And in order for me to do that, I wanted to study. And thankfully, the timing was really good. I got interested in English and I saw some small doses of success. Oh, I studied this chapter. I understand it. I'm getting better and better. So I had a lot of experiences even when I was studying on my own without having the opportunity to language exchange or live abroad. And yeah, that literally changed my brain, changed my mind. Like you said, it's kind of like a superpower. You can see it in that way, definitely. Or you can also see it as a way to install like a different operating system onto your brain. Kind of like phones these days are compatible somehow, but still there's a big gap between Macs and PCs. So by learning a new language, you are going into different OS operating systems. So maybe 30 years ago when I was in college, in high school, I was completely Korean only in my brain, but now I have other areas of languages, so I can switch to this partially English speaking identity, partially Japanese speaking identity. I can switch to French speaking identity, and it really enriches my life. So yeah, it just happened naturally. And also, the beginning stages were just me wanting to help my friends get information about Korea and the Korean language because there was literally none online. So yeah, I wanted to help people. I enjoyed it, and people asked for more. So I did that, and I found out that I'm not that bad at doing this. So um, I pulled various interests I had personally into one place: website building, media making, uh, educational material design and creation, language learning, language teaching, all in one place. Voila, you have something called Talk to Me in Korean. And this is still my first full time job. And it's a dream that somebody who is in their mid 40s can say that they're doing their first full-time job still.
This is amazing. Like when you talk about building Talk to Me in Korean, when was the time that you realized, aha, like this could be so much bigger. This could be a full-time job. Like when did you have a moment like that?
Oh, from day one I had this amazing like high levels of conviction. I tend to have conviction in everything I do. It's just kind of a battle against myself. Like if the only obstacle for me personally, I'm sure there are many people who can relate to that. The biggest obstacle in on my way to success, my own success, is myself. So as long as I don't lose this conviction or passion, I knew from day one that this would become big. I just didn't know how long it would take and what kind of people I would be working with. I just didn't know the faces of the coworkers that I would be interacting with on a daily basis. But other than that, I knew exactly that this was going to be, a lot of help to other people, something that I would be doing for a while, and something that I would be proud of. And yeah, I just knew from the first day.
Yeah, for sure. I really love the conviction that you had, that the willing to bet on yourself since you were very young, like since fresh out of college. And thinking back, like when you were building Talk to Me in Korean, this is 2024, but back then it was 2010, 2015. The notion of building businesses or even the idea of selling courses on social media were not normalized back then. How was it?
Mhm.
How was it like running Talk to Me in Korean in like the pre-popularization of like courses era? Like, I'm sure you've gotten so many like backlashes for doing certain things. Like, yeah, we'd love to hear more story about it.
So in the first couple of years, I was barely making any money. So I appreciated the support of especially my wife, my family members, and my friends who were like not doubting what I was doing. So I had to make money on the side from other things, of course, to actually continue making a living out of this, continue doing this. But then eventually there came a moment where I was able to focus more and more on Talk to Me in Korean and just fully focus on Talk to Me in Korean. And also eventually I
Mm.
was able to say no to other things. Hey, I'm too busy doing this. And again, I'm very grateful, and I feel like I was lucky in terms of all the timing because, like you said, people were not used to paying for courses online. People were definitely not used to ordering books from all the way from a company based in South Korea and having
Yeah.
their actual physical paper books shipped literally from South Korea. People were not even used to getting Amazon orders delivered like over a few days. So yeah, things were getting started in terms of e-commerce, and therefore, if I had started with this business plan of, hey, I'm going to sell courses, I'm going to sell books, maybe it might have not worked. But my only focus was to just teach Korean, literally just help people learn. And I looked at 100 different ways of how to help people learn Korean. So that's why we launched the podcast without even anything to sell. And after having thousands of or tens of thousands of podcast listeners, regular listeners, and we also had a Facebook page back then to interact with people. And I remember literally asking people, "What would you buy from me? Like, what would you like for me to make something that you would consider buying?" And people actually gave us ideas. Hey, how about an ebook? How about books? How about this and that? So we were like, thank you, we'll work on that. And we worked on those ideas pretty quickly and then actually presented people with an outcome, and people did react positively. Hey, okay, I will buy this. So we literally asked our customers, and they gave us answers, and we met their needs, and that's how we grew naturally, little by little. And I know this is not a conventional way to start a business and operate a business, so I don't recommend that everybody should do this. But that's what I did. Yeah.
Few things that I really took away with it. It's like first you commit every decision with the principle of teaching, not necessarily monetizing. Because if you had the mindset of monetizing, it's much easier to you to fall off the track when it didn't work out. But if you have your mind on just
Mm-hmm.
teaching people how to speak Korean, things might not work well on the monetization end, but if you persevere through it, when the time comes when people are more comfortable doing these things like buying physical book from South Korea or buying pay memberships online, and that led to what Talk to Me in Korean is today. So super cool.
Yeah.
And the second thing
Yeah.
I took away with is the idea with listening to your audience, right? Like I wasn't sure you were polling audience, you were looking at the comments, you were doing surveys to understand what their core needs are. And when they tell you, it's like, I want to buy a book, it's almost like you started with an audience. You don't have to sell it to, you just have to build a product instead of building a product and trying to sell it
Mhm.
to your audience that may or may not exist. So that's really cool.
One thing that did help me with this business idea or business generation was that I do come from a learner background. So every struggle, every frustration moment that our customers, our learners went through or are going through, I've been there myself. So I know how to actually help solve that. And that's my source of conviction, certainty that I know what I'm doing.
Over the course of the years, like, who was your first hire?
Hmm. My first hire is actually my co-founder, Kyungin. I don't know if I can call my co-founder my first hire, but she was the first person that I actually talked into starting this with me because she was working, on a different job. She was at a different job, and I had to convince her to literally quit her job and come work with me. and um, and it wasn't even difficult to do that because she also saw a vision in this. And after that, we were working together, like the two people in this tiny, tiny office, creating content. And then eventually we made enough money to hire another person, and eventually we made enough to make hire the third person, fourth person, fifth person. So that's like how we made the team bigger, literally person by person.
But when it comes to like the task or like the responsibilities, like how do you think about, are you looking for someone who is more production oriented, or are you looking for someone who is better at making courses and curriculum? Like,
Eventually, right now we are in a more of a company kind of shape. But back then, when we were three people, four people, five people, every person came with the total package of like, this person is good at this person is interested in this. So we would actually make the shape of the company a little bit different based on that person, based on the new member. So we were more flexible back then. But yeah, so back then in the beginning, what kind of skills, what kind of abilities that person has. So talent of an individual. But now we have to look at the teams and what kind of role we need to fill. So it's a little new for me as well. So it was actually a steep learning curve for me. I went from being a creator, content creator, teacher, YouTuber, blogger, podcaster myself. And that took up 100% of my time back then. Now, fast forward to 2024, content creation, content design, planning, that is only like 30% of my work. 70% of my work is now um, managing people and working with people, making sure that they do their job really well. So yeah, it's a little different.
if you, I also just saw like you did like a live stream on YouTube, just like answering people questions as well. That was super cool. Just goes to show like you really enjoy making content.
Mm.
What is the most costly mistake that you think the team in Talk to Me in Korean has made?
What's the most costly mistake? We had a lot of failures that are not like visible to many people in public. Like we tried many different ideas, and each idea that didn't work was you know followed by a heavy cost. But what's the well, when we opened a coffee shop, that was also costly, not in the sense of losing a lot of money, but in the sense of not being able to do what we wanted to do. We thought, okay, if because we have a lot of online presence on the internet, maybe if we open an offline venue, people would come and just hang out with us. People did come and people did actually hang out with us. But then the problem was we were still busy doing our online stuff. So we were not able to go to the coffee shop ourselves. So everybody would be asking the baristas and the staff members, hey, where are the Talk to Me in Korean teachers, or when are they coming? And we wanted to be there and hang out with them. But then our duty, our responsibilities were still with the content creation side. So we were like, I wish I could just be hanging out with the, people, learners traveling to Korea, visiting the coffee shop. But then, so we just, yeah, it was something that we wanted to try. We did try it. I'm glad. But yeah, that was not a mistake per se, but we did learn a lot of lessons.
With the coffee shops, like how, like when you say you have different many ideas that you wanted to attempt, and you may have attempt and they may have worked or may not worked, how does that work? Like, say I have an idea for Talk to Me in Korean to, let's say, launch a WhatsApp community. Like how how did that come to life?
Okay. So we've had various um, ways that we do those things, but now currently what we have is, because we're still a small team, but we still are a team, which means there are many people involved with Talk to Me in Korean. So we have 26 full-time members. So I can't just say, hey, let's do this and expect everybody to follow and like enjoy the process. Maybe I was able to, it was okay for me to do that when we had 5 people on the team, because it was 4 other people. We would be eating at the same table. We would be like looking at each other's face every day. But then when it's 20 plus people in the office, it's impossible. So what we do have now is we divide projects into different categories. It can be either a whole company project, so everybody will work on that together, or it can be mainly just me toying with the idea and kind of coming up as a visionary, kind of person or a leader. I would play with certain ideas and then let it stay in that category as a small beta project. Or it can be me or another teacher, another thought leader leading the project with one person or 2 people, not the whole company. So it
Mhm.
really depends on how big you want to make the project. For example, hey, I want to see how it goes, and then it we like to just assign one person on that, and then see how it goes for like 3 months or 4 months, and then have the courage to say, hey, this didn't work. Let's close it. Because if you can't say that, it'll be dragging everybody down with a lot of weight, because nobody's
Yep.
enjoying it. It's not generating any like meaningful outcome, but then you still have to do it. So yeah, right now in 2024, after a lot of like hard lessons that we've learned through trials and errors, now that's what we do.
Have you ever had a moment that you were like, this is so hard, or like this is so much like managerial responsibilities that I wanted to go back to my creative roots? Have you ever had those moments?
Um, yes, many times actually, but it's also natural. Last year, like in late fall or early winter, there was this huge trend of big time OG YouTubers quitting YouTube. Do you remember, or have you seen that? And I was
Yeah.
like watching more than 10 videos from all these people that started their YouTube channels around the same time I did, like maybe 15 years ago, 10 years ago. And they're all quitting YouTube and they're stating their reasons. And all these reasons I was able to like really relate to them. And I also felt that I was thankful. I felt thankful that I didn't feel what they felt as heavily, as deeply as they did. If I might have also uploaded a video, hey, I'm going to take a break, right? But I can relate to that. You start managing people or more people, and then you're like wondering, oh, I didn't start this to manage these people, right? So every time there was a new member added to the team, I would have small, like short moments of pondering, thinking, okay, like what does this mean? I need to take a coffee break. I need to take a day off and think, like reorient myself. So yes, definitely a lot of times I would be lying if I said I didn't. But at the same time, I'm older than before. I have two kids and I am like nearing the second half of my life. So I have to think about things in a different light now. So do I want to be the person that still creates all the lessons, all the YouTube videos myself in? I can do it fine now. I'm happy to be doing that. But what about in 10 years time? What about in 15 years time? Do I want to be doing that? And I also did a little bit of English TV, English teaching TV and radio here in Korea. So many Korean people actually recognize me as their English teacher on TV. Although I'm not a native speaker, I did a lot of shows. And then whenever I stopped doing all the English teaching side of things maybe 5 years ago. But whenever I went to the broadcasting station to film an episode or something, I actually saw many of my 선배 people, like older fellow coworkers at the TV stations who had been doing this for like 25 years. And they seemed to be enjoying that. But at the same time, I knew that it wasn't me. Hey, I will enjoy seeing learners grow. I will enjoy helping learners learn. But when I'm 55, I probably won't enjoy teaching an actual lesson in a video or an audio course myself. I want to have teachers that are more talented than me, better than me, be doing this. So yeah, I had those. I want to go back to my creator roots moments, but now I'm happy that I am kind of going farther away from it.
That's awesome. It's moments of realizations like these really help you reflect and show that as a creator, you go through different phases, right? At the very beginning,
Mm-hmm.
you are in front of the camera doing the editing, telling the stories and teaching the lessons. And as the channel becomes bigger, the platform has reached more people. Now,
Mm-hmm.
the the best that you can do with the platform is actually by training and educating more people to be able to deliver these lessons as a much more bigger scale, as a much bigger platform. And hearing that from you, it's so interesting. And you mentioned about like meeting your senpai at these broadcasting stations that have been doing that for 25 years. Don't you ever feel like when you work in, if you like YouTube or like podcasting, like 10 years feels like 25 years?
Yeah, that's true too. But at the same time, it really depends on what kind of stage in life you're going through. So if I was maybe 35 and I started doing YouTube when I was 20, maybe those 15 years would have felt differently than my 15 years actually feels like. So it depends on what kind of stage in life you're going through. I got married at the average age where people get married, like 30, 31. I had kids at the average timing when I was like 32, 33. So I can say, although I'm not a normal or typical person, a typical Korean person, I did go through the typical paths that most people in my age group actually goes through, or at least expected to go through. So, yeah, it's the time and the thoughts that I have are coming to me at the most natural um, point.
And with this in mind, it's a good segue to talk about the future of Talk to Me in Korean. End of last year, did a big change with the website where you made a huge investment to upgrade the website, and
Mhm.
the membership system has also gone through an upgrade. I'm
Mhm.
just curious for the next year or so, like how do you envision the future of Talk to Me in Korean?
The That's a really good question, and thank you for that. The only thing that will not change is that we will do our best to teach the Korean language to as many people as possible in the best ways that we can. But everything else will and can change, of course. Like the fact that we will be offering books will never change because we, like you said, we've already sold 1 million copies and all the books are distributed around the world. But we might want to offer those books in other languages, and through that, to do that, we will have to work with other contributors, distributors, and translators, publishers. And what will not change is that we will offer courses, but what can change is we will offer courses through other languages or other platforms. So lots of changes are actually coming. And one of the changes that we actually implemented was, like you mentioned, last summer, we Talk to Me Korean was heavily freemium, right? So on the website itself, there were many free resources, free lessons, and people were able to upgrade to access more courses. But then we changed it mainly because we had already built a large collection of free resources on YouTube and through the podcast. So if I believed that I thought that if people want to learn for free, they can still do that through our, huge resource collection. And then if they want to learn more systematically, they can, pay a small price. It's relatively small compared to other tuition fees when you want to enroll yourself in a school or stuff like that. And then study systematically. And that'll also enable us to invest more into a better system, which did allow us actually to launch the graded reading system, which was the first of its kind for the Korean language and for many other languages too. So we have this app called Talk to Me in Korean Stories. And when I was learning English, this was one of my biggest struggles. I had already studied all the grammar chapters. I had memorized thousands or tens of thousands of English words, but then I could never put it to use because I didn't have anybody to practice with. And then the best thing I could do was to read a lot, but then the first book I read was less than 200 pages and I managed through it fine. But then the next book I picked up was 700 pages. And it was like too random and the difficulty levels were too different. So it was a struggle for me. So we launched that, and that change last year gave us the power to invest heavily into the future of Talk to Me Korean. So we will introduce more changes, but everything will center around the idea of how to help learners better and better, because if we had only been offering more and more and more free lessons, I would still be making videos by myself. I would still be just, doing podcast only. So yeah, you can expect more changes.
I love the Talk to Me in Korean stories, because I felt like it's really through these stories that you were able to learn and be entertained. It's almost like when you were watching a K-drama, but the focus has a lot more emphasis on like the learning aspect. So I really like that. And I'm curious with all these changes, like what keeps you up at night?
Oh. The only thing is my team. How um, to make sure that my team members are happy and motivated. Like I might sound arrogant in saying this, but I know that I can teach well. I know I have the teaching techniques. I know I have the knowledge required to be a good and efficient teacher, at least. And I know language learning. I know language teaching. So, yeah, I know myself. I'm happy doing this. But I just think a lot about whether my coworkers, my employees, my team members, whatever you call them, are happy working with me. So yeah, that's what keeps me up at night when it does.
Awesome, awesome. And for creators who are tuning into this, if you would have to restart Talk to Me in Korean again, what would you do differently?
Personally, if I, just look back at what I did, I wouldn't do anything differently. But if I started this year, and if there was a content creator who is like starting out in 2024, I would say learn from other people's mistakes and success stories, because there are so many content creators, language teachers online who are sharing their stories, and you can learn so much from them. Uh, I didn't seek advice from anyone when I started because I was mainly just too full of myself, maybe. But I would advise people to, before they try new things, look at other people's mistakes, look at other people's stories, and then try to do it in the most efficient form as possible. I'm not saying that you should copy everybody else's style, but if you can, ask people for advice. And then 2024 is a year where you can actually avoid many mistakes just by looking at other people's experiences. So I would do that differently.
Absolutely. And coming to the last part, I wanted to ask this question. I love to ask this question is if you could put up a billboard in the middle of Seoul where millions of people would see it, what would you put on the billboard? What kind of message or words that you want to put on it?
I would just I would just write "talk to me in Korean." That's it. It's just the backbone of the story behind the brand's name, because many of my friends who were living in Korea in 2005, 6, 7, 8, and 9. They were telling me, "Hey, I am living in Korea. I want to talk to Korean people in Korean," but then they think that I am not interested in learning Korean. I am, and then they would complain about it, like in a funny way. So, hey, everybody, talk to me in Korean. So that's the story behind the name of the brand. And yeah, I would just write, talk to me in Korean. 한국어로 말해주세요. And make people curious. Yeah. But like you said, going back to what you were mentioning briefly, language learning or learning a new language gives you a new superpower, because it doesn't have to be Korean. If you want to have that kind of same effect, the same kind of effect, it doesn't have to be the Korean language. It can be French. It can be anything. It can be Indonesian, Japanese, Chinese, Arabic, any language in the world. If you learn a new language, and you need to, get to a certain level though for this effect. But once you can actually have a conversation to a degree, you don't have to be completely fluent. as long as you can actually interact with a real person in that language, I would say it's upper beginner, like low intermediate even, your life literally changes. And who you are as a person changes only for the better, because your brain expands and the thinking power of your brain also changes. So learn Korean. If you enjoy it, it's much better. But at least for the sake of your brain health, at least for the sake of your better perspectives on life, learn a new language. And if you choose to learn Korean, you will enjoy it because there's so much content that you can enjoy on the side, in addition to actually listening to lessons. And if you want to learn Korean for a long time, yeah, we got your back.
Awesome, awesome. So this concludes the
Mm.
episode with Hyunwoo, the man behind Talk to Me in Korean. Thank you so much for coming
Mhm.
on, and it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. And I hope this was something that helped some people at least. And see you next time.
So that is it for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. All the links and resources will be shared in the descriptions. And if you'd like to support the podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating on whichever platform that you're on. It would help us a ton to reach new audiences. Thank you so much for listening. And again, I see you in the next one.